Hello everyone and welcome back to pre-season testing and the start of Season 2 of our F125 My Team Career Mode. And immediately off the bat, I'm going to say it, driver transfers are fantastic inside this game. By my count, 15 drivers have changed teams or left or come into the sport. So we've got a lot to get through as we head into the new season. A bit of a shake-up though, pre-season testing this year hosted out in Albert Park, Australia. Sadly, it's not been properly implemented into the game yet, so we're still doing our fun little alternative. But very, very excited to talk through some of the calendar changes and all of the driver changes as we head into the new season. And we kickstart things then, as always, with Ferrari. And immediately, obviously, we already knew that Lewis Hamilton would be retiring from the sport at the end of last year, and he has been replaced by Lando Norris. Charles Leclerc versus Lando heading into the new season. Going to be very, very interested to see how these two stack up against each other. Two drivers that came into the sport very highly rated. Both of them have had different successes, it must be said. Obviously, Lando Norris kind of in a World Championship fight in 2025 until he did what he did perhaps in Montreal last weekend. Charles Leclerc, he's been there before, 2022, everything like that. But finally, last season inside this game, he was able to claim the crown for himself. 10 victories for Ferrari last year, 8 of them courtesy of Charles Leclerc. Lewis Hamilton picking up 2 for himself as well. But Leclerc proved against the 7-time world champion, he is still Ferrari's darling. And heading into this new season, it looks like they are still going to be the team to beat. Charles Leclerc, 3 wins back-to-back at the end of last season. He will be looking to try and keep that race win margin going as we head into the new season. And yeah, Ferrari, I think, once more, are going to be the team to watch. Could Lando Norris, though, cause a surprise? Could he finally upset Leclerc's rhythm with the team? Only time will tell. But yeah, if you weren't expecting the red team to be fighting right for P1, you are going to be very much mistaken as we head into the new year. A lot of kind of analytics are suggesting that it is probably going to be Ferrari once again, but who will come out on top within the team? Red Bull, though, of course, another team with a driver lineup shake-up this year, obviously after we poached Yuki Tsunoda away, and after their beef all the way back in Brazil, if you remember all those years ago. Esteban Ocon and Max Verstappen are now Formula 1 teammates. This one did surprise me, I must admit, but pre-season testing pace, Esteban Ocon has actually been looking pretty quick. Nobody realistically expects him to, battle with Verstappen, really give Verstappen a big run for his money over the course of the season. But Red Bull desperately need a good backup number 2 driver. Tsunoda showed flashes of that brilliance last year. He did on, more than one occasion. He, bagged a few podiums, everything like that. But ultimately, this was actually a decision that Red Bull were forced into because we poached Yuki Tsunoda away. I think they were quite happy to keep him on, ready for Season 2 of this series. But ultimately, yeah, weren't able to. Clearly, obviously, wanted to try and, move somewhere else. A team on the up and up. Hopefully, as we continue throughout this career mode, maybe Tsunoda knows that there could be an opportunity to fight for the World Championship with 2&2 Motorsport further down the line as well. But for Max Verstappen, he will be looking to try and claim his 5th world title this year. 6 wins throughout the course of last season. He has never, you cannot count Max Verstappen out of being a World Championship threat, and this year is going to be no different. Over to McLaren then. A completely new lineup. Carlos Sainz is back after leaving Williams last season, and Pierre Gasly has joined them as well from Alpine. A very, very interesting move, a very, very odd move, but both drivers are in big trouble. McLaren, their pace as we head into this new season is not looking great. They have not got a particularly quick car. They have fallen down into the midfield on theoretical pace. Kind of a continuation of the fall-off we saw last year. Lando Norris still able to drag that championship fight right towards the end of the year. But Oscar Piastri was very much nowhere throughout a lot of last season. And McLaren, yeah, I believe coming into this new year on theoretical pace, which is never a perfect benchmark, but is normally a pretty good reading, they're 7th. So we've really kind of seen McLaren get to the top of these Formula 1, regulations, this ground effect era, and then have just completely fallen apart almost immediately. That being said, though, if they can find a bit of a resurgence, if they can get their act together, for both Carlos Sainz and Pierre Gasly, this is a second opportunity at what could theoretically be a top team. Obviously, Gasly with Red Bull back in 2019, Carlos Sainz, all those years of experience with Ferrari, and then obviously, yeah, coming back to McLaren is going to be very, very interesting to see how the Spaniard has got on. But a completely changed up driver lineup for McLaren this year is a massive, massive move and a big, big gamble. You know, you would have thought they would have locked down one of their drivers from last year to stay with the team, but clearly this is where Oscar Piastri has decided to go, alongside George Russell down at Mercedes. Despite the fact Kimi Antonelli, I didn't realise this until I was going back through the data, Antonelli in Qatar last year bagged Mercedes their best result of the year. George Russell had scored a few podiums, Antonelli bagged back-to-back podiums right at the end of the campaign, but unfortunately for him, it wasn't enough to keep his seat. We'll talk about him a little bit more in just a moment. But yeah, Oscar Piastri, after a pretty disappointing year with McLaren last season, wasn't able to live up to kind of the pace of Lando Norris or anything like that. Has, yeah, gone to Mercedes in a similar move to what we saw on F1 24, if I remember correctly. I'm pretty certain Oscar Piastri went to Mercedes inside F1 24, and then if you guys remember when I went to Mercedes for a single season, Oscar Piastri went the other way to Ferrari, so clearly it's kind of still almost hard-coded into the games that Oscar, you know, a likely move for him is Mercedes ready for the new season. That being said, though, looks to have been quite a good move on paper. Mercedes, after kind of being a bit of a lonely 4th place last year, it looks like, based on pre-season testing pace, that that car is going to be able to fight. You know, I think it's going to be between them, Red Bull and Ferrari this year, in kind of a weird shade of kind of 2016 through 2019, when it was always those three teams right at the top of the order as well. So, how will Mercedes fare? Could we see George Russell or Oscar Piastri claiming their first World Championship? Only time will tell. Aston Martin, though, Fernando Alonso, it didn't get announced till after the end of last season, but he has finally decided to call it time on his Formula 1 career. Of course, we'll wait and see whether Lance Stroll can actually leave the Aston Martin team inside this game, but he is joined by Liam Lawson as we head into the new season. A very, very interesting move. Not one that I was expecting to see inside this game, but he's going to be kind of fascinating to see who gets the most out of that car. Of course, losing a 2-time world champion, the man with more experience than any other behind the wheel of a Formula 1 car, was a big, big shock for Aston Martin. I think a lot of us were expecting Fernando to stay as we head into the new regs as well, but clearly has finally decided it's time to call it up on a Formula 1 career. And yeah, Liam Lawson filling his shoes over at that team. Maybe a little bit of a rush decision. Maybe Aston Martin are looking to try and get someone else in the future and just wanted someone with a bit of F1 experience. But yeah, the Aston Martin, again, it doesn't really look like they made a leap forward. It doesn't really look like they're going to contend with the top teams as we head into the new season. So for Lawson and Stroll, I think it's going to be a year of trying to pick up points where they can. Aston Martin, staggeringly, P5 last year, overall in the World Championship, never finished better than P5 in a single race as well. It was just consistent points from Fernando that really did carry them right the way through the season. Of course, you guys will remember the big battle we were having with them right the way through to the end of last year's campaign. And then, of course, we move over to 212 Motorsport. One win last year, of course, back at Monte Carlo, but again, a completely shaken up driver lineup. You guys already knew that we were bringing in Isaac Hadjar and Yuki Tsunoda. As you can see, some subtle tweaks and changes to the paint scheme this year, and after you guys moaned at me so often in the comments, yes, as you can probably tell, I've added more sponsors to the car as well. We've got some new sponsors coming in, ready for Season 2. I think the new livery, we've made the orange slightly darker. We've turned the dark blue into black. I think this thing is going to be a real threat over the course of the season. And our big goal in Season 2 is going to kind of be the best of the rest. Pre-season testing paces look like that might just be possible. Actually, Yuki Tsunoda, of course, a driver with a fair amount of experience. Obviously, with our team using the Red Bull powertrains, that has remained the same ready for Season 2. But this is the end of our 2-year deal with Red Bull powertrains as well. So obviously, we get to dip into their driver pool. It allows them to kind of mix and match drivers that they want as well. But, you know, we could quite easily stick with these two and move to, you know, a Ferrari power unit or a Mercedes power unit, maybe even an Alpine power unit at some point down the line as well. But I think the new car looks sick. Pre-season testing pace looks pretty good as well. I think we're going to be able to cause a bit of a stir this season, and hopefully win number 2 could be on the cards as well. But I'm just hoping we can see Isaac Hadjar and Yuki Tsunoda celebrate some good results and hopefully build up with the team now they have been saved from Red Bull. Williams, they've got their end of 2024 lineup back again. Alex Albon is staying with the team, of course, after Carlos Sainz came in and has subsequently left. And they've actually brought Franco Colapinto back, ready for this season. So, our Argentinian fans, I'm sure you guys will be loving to see this Colapinto back behind the wheel of a Formula 1 car. I did wonder whether it was going to be hard-coded into the game that Colapinto would replace Doohan, ready for Season 2 inside this scheme, but apparently not. And yeah, Colapinto, though, back behind the wheel of a Formula 1 car once again. Williams' pace, it looks like, just like ourselves, they've moved closer to Aston Martin at the front of kind of the midfield battle. They were locked into a tight race against Haas towards the end of last season, but ultimately had a car that was a bit quicker, a bit more consistently, and were able to hang on to that P7 overall. 3 6th place finishes, though, over the course of last season, but they were mainly courtesy of Carlos Sainz. So Alex Albon now, again, is going to have to try and lead that team, and how he's going to get on over the course of the campaign is going to be very interesting. These two were very close competitors throughout their time as teammates back in 2024. So Colapinto, again, you know, he'll know he needs to prove himself if he wants to maintain that seat more permanently. But yeah, very, very lucky for him, of course, that Sainz got the opportunity to go back to McLaren. Because, yeah, for Williams, it was a fairly easy choice to obviously put Franco back in the car with the pace that he was able to show at the end of that short blast. Haas, though, a completely new lineup ready for this season, and this is where Kimi Antonelli has decided to call home. Of course, Esteban Ocon picking up a podium for them last year. Haas's first, obviously, within the sport, and Jack Crawford is going to be alongside Antonelli. Both of these two seem like odd moves on paper, but actually make a lot of sense. Of course, Jack Crawford, currently IRL doing very, very well in Formula 2. American, so works well on the Haas front back at home. Kimi Antonelli, though, the rumours are that he is lining up a move to Ferrari, which makes sense. You know, the Italian, a very, very good driver, you know, finally could end the 75-year drought that Italy have waited for a Drivers' World Champion, and I think he at Ferrari could be a huge move in the future. Was a little bit unlucky, got dropped by Mercedes just after the halfway stage of last season, and then obviously really did pick up towards the end of the campaign, finally worked that car out, but he is going to have to try and lead the Haas outfit then. Last time they picked up a driver lineup with this little experience, didn't go particularly well for them, but I'm hoping, yeah, Antonelli and Crawford are going to be able to deliver some big results over the course of the campaign. Yeah, like we said, a podium last year. Haas, I think they're probably going to step back slightly. You know, they don't look to have the same pace as your Williams, your Aston Martins, or your 2&2 Motorsports heading into this season, but they still should be slightly better than the 3 teams behind them as we head into the new campaign. Of course, Ollie Behrman getting dropped by Haas due to those internal politics. Clearly, Ferrari would rather see Antonelli in their car than the Brits. So, yeah, he's gone to Alpine alongside Jack Doohan for this new season. So, again, even more driver moves that are going to be interesting to see how they play out. Of course, inside this game, Doohan able to hang on to his Alpine seat. And, you know, I quite like the guy. I'm hoping that he's going to be able to hold on to it a little bit longer as well inside this game. I think Behrman will likely get the better of him over the course of this season. Obviously, both drivers with 1 year of experience. Alpine, of course, we never really quite know what is going to be going on with that organisation as well. But hopefully, they're going to be able to deliver some results. Their goal, I think, this campaign will try and get the better of Haas. Hopefully, close in on that gap to Aston Martin, to 2&2 Motorsports, to Williams as well. But you never really know what's going on. Some years they absolutely rocket up the order. Other years they fall like a stone. So I think, you know, first and foremost, they need to make sure that once again they get the better of VCARB and Sauber heading into this campaign as well. But that being said, like I said, I really want to see who's going to get the job done between Ollie Behrman and Jack Doohan. If I was putting money on it, I think I would go with Ollie Behrman. But kind of where does his career go now? That is going to be really, really interesting to see whether this is just a 1 year deal, whether he calls Alpine home for a few more years. Again, we will have to wait and see. A completely new lineup, though, for VCARB Racing Bulls after a disappointing year last season. Obviously, Liam Lawson going to Aston Martin. We have obviously poached Isaac Hadjar as well. But, of course, they're a team that can take big risks. Paul Aaron coming in to Formula 1, of course, an ex-Alpine junior driver that VCARB, basically, Red Bull have kind of said one of these guys might be able to deliver very well. If they do, they get a Red Bull seat. If they don't, then, you know, it's not the end of the world for them. And Pepe Marti, of course, a Red Bull Junior this year in FIA Formula 2. He's doing pretty well, I must admit. He's had a couple of really good results. Seems very, very happy, as you can tell in the graphic, with his first ever gig in Formula 1. So, yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting to kind of see how this pans out. Who gets the better between these two drivers as well. And again, you know, from an F125 game standpoint, absolutely fantastic to see that we are getting more of the F2 drivers shuffled in. We are seeing more Formula 1 drivers shuffle around because, you know, for these two, this is a big opportunity to hopefully get into Formula 1 and really kind of prove what they're going to be capable of as well there. Let me know your thoughts and feelings down in the comments below about who you think is going to get the job done. Like I said, my money would be on Paul Aaron. Obviously, a really, really good F2 campaign in 2024. We might well see him in a Formula 1 car by the end of 2025, depending on how Franco Colapinto gets on. But for now, yeah, he is going to be racing down at VCARB, and I believe is the first ever Estonian Formula 1 driver as well then. Last but not least, Kick Sauber. And a bit like they used to do in F124, they haven't changed their lineup. Nico Hülkenberg, Gabriel Bortoleto staying with the team for the new season. Of course, Audi not quite able to implement them inside this game just yet. They did better than they did often through F124. They scored points on a couple of occasions. A P9 finish was their best result, but ultimately still a little way away from VCARB. Hülkenberg's proven, though, with Kick Sauber in real life, if they can bring a few upgrades to the car, that they could be a points threat more regularly. But ultimately, yeah, I think they're going to need a few more upgrades as we come into this new season. Just Sauber seem to have always slipped back throughout this ground effect era. And hopefully they're not going to continue to do so. It would be nice if they could fight quite regularly, for those, even if it's just for P10s and P9s, if they can get a few points on the board, and maybe get a big result somewhere, it could be absolutely fantastic to see for them. But the fact that Sauber are the only team that haven't changed their lineup clearly goes and shows that, they do believe the problems are with the car and not with the lineup. Of course, Hülkenberg, ready and waiting for Audi to come into the sport. Bortoleto, clearly just happy to stay where he is, build on kind of the momentum that he built up over the course of last season as well there. And like I said, I'm hoping for Kick Sauber that they can deliver a few bigger results a little bit further down the line. Last little bit of admin changes, though, as we head into the new year. Reverse tracks, of course, implemented into F125. So Austria and Silverstone are now going to be double-header reverse track weekends as well. So we're going to have the regular track one weekend, the reverse layout the next weekend. Zandvoort, though, I've ditched the normal layout, and we have just got the reverse layout inside the game. So Zandvoort, obviously the normal layout is one track I've removed. Monaco, I hated to have to do it, but sadly, unless they improve it inside the game, it's just far too easy, even on 110 AI. So I've had to remove, kind of Formula 1's crown jewel event for this season. And last but not least, Miami. The US has already got 3 Grand Prix. It's already got another sprint weekend as well. So I've decided to ditch Miami as well this season. It will probably be thrown back in a little bit further down the line. But apart from that, yeah, all the other circuits remaining as you would expect to see. I like doing 24 race seasons earlier on inside the game as well. So yeah, hopefully we're going to have another fun and interesting campaign. And just giving you guys a little last look at the all-new 212 Motorsports -002 MGP car ready for this campaign. But thank you all so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts and feelings on the driver lineups as we head into the new campaign. For those of you that have been channel members as well, you actually got early access to all of these. So if you want to help support us a little bit more, please do consider clicking that join button. Formula 1 though, we will return in Australia tomorrow. You guys do not want to miss it.